Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tea with Crema. My name is Chris. I'll be one of your hosts today, and I'm joined by my best friend, Emma.
What's up, y'all?
Today, we are excited because we have the first guest of the history of the podcast that I have not actually met before. So Emma met her assignment. She did it. We have our first guest I have never ever met before. So we are super, super excited to welcome the host of the podcast, Reads with Rosa, founder, the CEO, the creative director, the writer of all the questions, Rosa herself. Welcome to the Tea with Crema.
Hey guys. Hi everyone. Hi, I'm a little bit nervous, but, it's good to be here.
We're happy
We're
to have you.
super excited. It's going to be a great time, I promise.
It won't be like teeth surgery. It'll be like easy. Just easy breezy.
Before we begin, we have our tea check. So Emma, what tea did you bring today?
I'm a little under the weather, so I'm drinking a puka, lemon, ginger, and manuka honey. It is very good for my throat because I think I'm allergic to manuka honey, so I don't know if it's my throat is being soothed or if I can't breathe anymore. Well, this might be the last episode of the Tea with Karma, everyone. Just kidding. Okay, Rosa, what are you drinking today?
I am drinking lemon and ginger. It's a Mad Tea London. I got it off Amazon Japan. Usually I'd be drinking a latte every morning. Like I have this particular one I buy from Family Mart. Long story. Anyways. But because it's Lent, I have been drinking a lot of tea. So lemon and ginger.
Good for you. What are you drinking today, Chris?
Today, I brought yet another chocolate tea. I don't know why they keep sending me chocolate teas, but sips by, let me just clarify one time for the one time. Chocolate teas are not good. And this one is not great. It's not as bad as that first chocolate tea that I had a long time ago. But it's also not good. I would not get it again. It smells funny and it tastes as funny. So honestly, 2 stars because there's other stuff in it that's helping it do its best, but it's a 2-star tea.
I just don't understand the concept of chocolate tea because I feel like it's supposed to be like hot cocoa, but very watery. And that doesn't
That's what
sound
it feels like. It feels like you took a spoonful of the hot cocoa mix out of the pre-measured package that's supposed to make 1 cup, and you just took 1 spoonful, and that's what this tea is like.
We call this the diet cocoa.
I would not recommend it, but in any case, our episode today is celebratory in a sense because Reads with Rosa is celebrating its 2-year anniversary.
Happy
Yay.
second birthday!
Thank you.
Actual second birthday, not like that one time that the Tea with Crema was like, we're 8 years old, and we were only 4. It just...
We were only 1 at that point.
I just don't count well. But it's super exciting. And so today we'll just be diving into what it's like to have a podcast all that time, to take it from brain to product. But you also do it a bit differently in the sense that Emma and I are a duo, a partnership. We do the podcast in that regard. And you are the singular host of Reads with Rosa. Is that correct?
Yes. It's, yeah.
So it'll be different to just hear about okay, when you're doing it all by yourself and you don't get to text your friend and be like, hey, remember that thing that's due tomorrow? It's just let me text myself. Hey, remember that thing that's due tomorrow?
Add it to the to-do list. So, are we ready to dive in, Rosa?
Let's do it.
Okay, first off, please introduce yourself and how do you know us?
Talafalava, everyone. I am Rosa. I'm Samoan, born and bred in Tamaki Makaurau, Aotearoa, so Auckland, New Zealand. How do I know Emma? Actually, I met Emma, met her on Bookstagram. So I have an Instagram account, which is dedicated to everything books and reading. Hence the name Bookstagram, for those who don't know. So I didn't actually, we have mutual friends. So I think that's how we connected. And then I started the podcast and, we're celebrating 2 years today. And Emma was actually the first guest on the podcast. So it makes it even more special that we're doing this today. And then, of course, Chris is the cool friend that I was just seeing online through Emma's posts. Like, I was like, I know Chris, we're cool, but never met Chris. But that's the story of Emma and Chris.
That's the connections, people. We're all about making the connections here. You know, shout out to Bookstagram. I don't even have a Bookstagram. I just want to point that out. I was just like a huge fangirl of Rosa and all the other like Polynesian Bookstagrammers that I was like, I'm just going to follow. And then we started messaging each other and I was like, you should read this book. Yeah, that's me. I'm that fangirl. Anyway.
Didn't you also help Emma take the dive into the international teaching circuit?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. And yes. How can I forget that? She lives down the road. My bad. Let's backtrack. Yes. So Emma and I did that very first podcast. There's so many funny things about that first podcast. Like, seriously, so many things that I had to learn from that. But then, you know, at the end of that, at the time, I had just heard, like maybe a few days before, that the science teacher was leaving in the high school. And I was just like, sis, you're a science teacher. Because on her other Instagram account, it's Miss Alatini, the sciences. Get it? Science. Anyways, I love that. She doesn't have a lot of posts on there, but I had always remembered that. I was like, oh, cool, science. So anyways, fast forward, we finished the interview and I said, hey, there's this job going. I think you'd be great. Here's me like trying to get another Islander friend up here, you know, down here in Japan. So yeah, I just told her about the job and she applied. She was super overqualified, by the way, for the job. But I didn't care. I just wanted another friend. I was like, come on down. And then she did it all on her own. You know, I just told the people at school and then they connected with her and everything else was her. And then she arrived in August and I remember that year, 2022, huh? What she got? 2020. See, can't even remember the date. But I remember it was COVID protocols. You know, at that time, but we're not hugging people. As she walked in, I go really loud in the teacher's room. I didn't care. I have to hug my sister. And I just went in for the full hug. I was like, I didn't care. Judge me all you want. But yeah, we just kept talking. Through that time, she got offered the job. I was absolutely stoked. She made the move. And then I met her in August. Yeah, a few months later. Like, it happened so quickly. It was cool.
It really did, though. I have to say that was a huge leap of faith on your part to also be like, hey, there's this other Islander that might be a good fit. What if I wasn't a good fit? What if I was a terrible teacher?
No, okay. On that, seriously though, on that, seriously, I've never, like, I'm real kind of intentional. Like when I was just seeing Emma only through what I was seeing online, her posts and whatnot. And then of course our conversations about books. I just knew she'd be a perfect fit. I knew, like, I'd see her vibe, even though on her Miss Alatini, the sciences account, like, she doesn't post a lot on there, but the photos says a lot. Her like, she's so overboard. I mean, I know you're into this, Chris, too, but you know, all the decorating of the jumpers and things like that. Oh, the sweaters, the jumpers. I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that is so extra. I absolutely love it. So then we did the interview and I was like, sis, you're such a vibe. Like, it was my first interview and it was just so cruisy. I felt like I was catching up with a sis from home. So I was just like, I'm going to do this. And I have, you know, I was so like, it was a leap of faith, but I knew she would fit in. And I absolutely knew the students would love her. And they do. They love Miss A. So I don't have any regrets. And I wouldn't just offer, you know, I wouldn't just reach out to anyone. I was just like, no, this department is an awesome department. She's going to fit right in and they're going to love her. That was a long, long story, but yeah, that's what's up.
That's all we're all about. You know, go on a Bookstagram, people. Look, find community, find the people. So jumping into now, you have your own podcast. Happy 2 years. Let's go right back to the beginning. What inspired you to start your own podcast?
This is a really difficult question, to be honest. It's an interesting question because like I reflect on this, like every time someone asks me, like, what inspired you to start the podcast? And if I'm honest, you know, I would probably say that it wasn't something that inspired me. I was out to prove a point. I don't know if that makes sense. So let me just give you a little bit of context. So when I had started my Bookstagram account, like maybe a few months before I started the podcast, some of my friends were like, you could do a podcast, They were planting those seeds. They're like, you're reaching folks through book recommendations, you're posting and promoting authors and highlighting Pacifica, BIPOC voices. Why don't you, do some live reviews on your account? I was like, oh, hell no, how shameful. I'm just all about, let's just post on the keyboard, right? So my friends were definitely like, you should definitely do something like a podcast, do something different to align with your Bookstagram. But it wasn't until I got this guest spot I was doing a guest spot on a show, and long story short, it didn't work out well. Like, it didn't end well. And during the time that I was doing this guest spot, my friends had started up again. You can do your own podcast. Now that they were seeing me on a podcast, they're like, come on, sis, there's no reason why you can't do it. You can do what you want. You can run the show, right? So that was always there. And then when this gig didn't work out, I was just kind of like, the way it ended, I really wanted to prove a point. So it's not that I was inspired. I was just like, oh no, stuff you, I'm going to do that. Like for real. And I've never said this before. I was just like, nah, I'm going to show you this person that I can be better and do better. I know I'm pretty stubborn. So I was adamant that I was going to be better and do a better job and never make anyone feel like how I was left feeling after that gig. That's pretty much the gist of it. So once that first episode finished, I realized, okay, that's out of my system now. This is even bigger than I thought. There's more to this. There's a bigger purpose. I'm not out here trying to be all like, let me get revenge and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It was just like, that was definitely driving me. Not revenge, but I was really driven to like, in that 4 weeks of March 2021, that's how long it took me to record, get the first 10 guests, figure out how to find a streaming platform, all of the admin stuff. I did that in 4 weeks. That's how determined I was to make a point. I didn't have any regrets. I'm not bitter anymore. This is actually the first time I've kind of really said it like that.
I was like, you've never actually talked about it before, so...
Yeah, so...
Welcome to the Tea with Karma, everyone. The tea is hot! We're not going to drop any names about who that person was, but I'm sure if you researched Rosa, you'd be able to find her somewhere, and then y'all will know.
I want to say that it was a really huge learning experience, although it was a very short time. And I'm grateful. Like, that's the thing, though. I'm so grateful because it really helped me to be like, oh, you know what? If you want to get something done, you can do it and do it your way. And this whole journey it's been like a huge step out of my comfort zone. I mean, I can't even tell you.
I think sometimes that is like our best motivator, right? My haters are my motivators is what I like to say. I don't have any haters, or at least I don't think I do, but
the silence.
Wow. No validation. Anyone? Someone? Co-host? Christopher?
Awkward. Sure, we all have them somewhere.
I think mine are actually imaginary. They're all up in my head. It's all my other voices. Just kidding. So what have been some challenges that you have had with the podcast? Like maybe either challenges of you having the podcast and running it all by yourself, or I guess just like challenges in general.
Yeah, I have a whole list actually.
Oh.
Right in front of me. I have a whole list. Yeah, so challenges, definitely the editing, the video stuff, the audio stuff. I'm still learning. YouTube is my friend. That's where I go for everything to learn. So that's one part of it. Reaching out to potential guests is a challenge because people give you the scene, and I would, even if it's a no, I would accept that. Like, it's okay. Like, not everyone has said yes, but it's when people give you the scene and not even like a reply. I'm like, I know I'm probably not really high on their priority of things to do, but I like to try and respond to everyone, who reaches out to me.
Even like a no, I'm not interested.
Yeah,
like
I'll be like, all goods.
When it's like a scene, it's almost like, are they thinking about it, or is that like a hard no?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a challenge, learning to accept that because, it hurts. But yeah, trying to keep my emotions in check when people are sharing their stories in the space is also a challenge. I'm a very emotional person normally, so I'm always moved by the different stories that are shared on the podcast, and trying to be a better listener. Like, I get really excited, and it's not that I cringe because I know that I've grown so much on this journey, but like, I just want to punch myself when I like play back, a clip or something, and I'm like, oh, why did I interrupt that? Like, I get way too excited. So trying to be a better listener and kind of pause and wait for the responses, that is a challenge. I mean, even today I've like jumped in a few times, cutting out. I'm like, stop that, Rosa, calm down. So admin stuff like emails, doing guest research, like promo stuff on Canva, social media content. Social media it can be a bit overwhelming, and yeah, sometimes I just need a break. It's a challenge doing all of that. At the beginning, I was kind of like, will people like what I'm putting out there? But I'm past that point, and I'm just really at a place where I'm like, it will resonate with whoever it resonates with, and people will follow if they follow, and that's okay. And at the end of the day, if it can reach one person, we're good. Staying organized is another challenge. Being aware of the language that I'm using is something that it's the teacher part of me, and I have to do better. Like, I'm still trying to do better is what I'm trying to say. I'm forever learning and evolving. In terms of staying organized, I really wanted to shout out your team because I really love your guest guide. Like, when Emma sent that through, I was like, I shared to my friend at work. I said, oh my gosh, Emma and Chris's guest guide is the bomb. It's so organized, and it made me realize I need to do something like this or something similar, or be better organized. The podcast has actually helped me to be a lot more organized in terms of this kind of stuff, but I'm still learning. There was a whole list of challenges. Those are the challenges.
Hopefully we'll get to some good stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's more the bringing everything together. I need to shout out my friend Evo from Melbourne, Australia, and she, like I said, March 2021, when I was trying to put everything together, she is amazing. She's a writer. She does like videography stuff. She's a creative in so many different ways. And she came on board and did the editing for me for that whole first year. She did everything, but then she was offered like her dream job. So we talked about it. I was like, I'm going to learn off tutorials on YouTube. And then I took over, and you can really see the big difference in how awesome her editing and stuff was. Yeah, then I'm still working towards that. I'm awesome too, but yeah, I learned so much from her. And we always used to have like weekly, every Tuesday or Wednesday, okay, Zoom, let's double check everything, because it was like we were doubling everything up. Like, I would do the interview recording, then I would go through the interview and mark, timestamp stuff. Okay, delete this. Then I would send the document to her. She would go from my timestamps and delete, edit from there. Then she would send it back to me for reviewing. Then it was this whole that first year was such a huge learning curve. So all just mad love to my sis Evo. She was awesome, and we hadn't even met at that point. So it's kind of like this me and Chris situation, right? We had met through fellowship online, like Bible study online through mutual friends, and then so I'm so grateful to her. And we saw, like, she's busy working, impacting lives in the performing arts and creative stuff in Melbourne. So I'm just so grateful for her. So
takes a village.
No, like literally, a podcast is a lot of work. In case anyone was wondering, I promise it is fun when you make it. And I'm glad that you've gotten to that point where it's that almost self-actualization of it'll reach who it needs to reach. And that's all it needs to do. Even we were caught up in the first year or so of just as many people as possible. And now it's very comfortable. And just, it's fine. And if it's more people and it's bringing people together and it's starting conversations, awesome. In your case, if they are exploring new books and learning about new authors and other experiences, amazing. that's just all it needs to be. It doesn't need to reach every person in the world, all 7 billion, 8 billion, how many billions are we at now? No one really knows. But in any case, are there things there's no way you do a podcast for 2 years and don't enjoy it. So what are the things that are your favorites? Because yes, there's lots of challenges to make it happen, but what keeps you in it?
Yeah, it's the stories. Like, honestly, it's the life experiences. It's the personal journeys that the guests share. Like, I should mention that it's called Reads of Rosa, the Reads of Rosa podcast. But that's only because I didn't want to create like a podcast account, and Reads of Rosa is my Bookstagram account. So I do 3 different things on this one account. So I love to read, but I'm not the best person at like talking about books. Like, I'm that kind of person, I'll read it and I'm like, I feel so good. I'm so excited I read that. But actually having the conversations, I struggle to do that. So the podcast actually, it's all my favorite things, like books, like education, obviously, and performing art, like music and creative. Like, that's my thing. So a lot of the people who have come on the show and shared their stories are from those spaces, from those community spaces. But they've been like sports, like athletes, they've been like activists, just a whole range of folks. But it's their stories that it really inspires me. And I feel like if their stories and their journey, if it inspires me, surely it will resonate with others. So I just think making connections and building community and uplifting others is very important. In this social media age that we live in, there are only certain voices being amplified, and they are the people who are just, well-known folks, I'm not saying these stories are not important, but there are also just the Emmas and the Chris's and, that are just smashing goals, impacting lives in your respective fields, and those stories are not necessarily shared. So that's why I keep doing what I do. Like I always say, as soon as I get bored and tired, I'm just gonna stop.
I think that's my favorite part of having guests on too. It's just like, even people, up to today, this episode, they've all been people that I know, but it's different when you're having intentional conversations. And I don't want to call them structured. We do have questions to guide and kind of keep a focus on. But I think that was also one of the big things that really helped our podcast of just, that was what we wanted to do. Em and I talk all the time. We were talking before the podcast. But the point was to, I think very similar to you, is just like give it that platform of just a little something different, a little something else. And to really help. Because again, like we said, therapy is expensive. And so we had to find a workaround for it. And so I really love the podcast experience that you're having. Because again, that's allowing people to get this sort of experience that they might not have gotten otherwise. Like, these aren't necessarily stories that you're going to see on a show on Netflix or on Amazon Prime, but they're still important stories. And so being able to share the work of others, I think it's just really nice and cathartic, I think, just to see when people are interested in the same things that you're interested in, or sometimes awakening an interest that you didn't know that you had until you hear someone else speaking about it.
I should mention too that the one factor that kind of brings everything together is books. So like, it's called the Reads of Rosa podcast. So I might have, I have authors, but then I also have, like, my friend is, PhD student, it's like different perspective, different worldview, different lens. It's just books is what brings people together. And I've had people on the show who have shared, this really kind of got your account really helped me to kind of get back into reading. I've only recently got back into it. I've had other people who are avid readers. So I think that when, especially folks from New Zealand, because I have, I'm from New Zealand. So a lot of people on the show have been from there, although they're from different community spaces. But I'm sure that when people see some of the guests, they're like, oh, I didn't know this person was a reader. They're so staunch in the music and stuff they put out. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's books is what brings people together. And so that's why I'm always like, oh, please share a book recommendation. And if not, like, if you're studying, maybe some research material or an article or an audiobook or even a podcast, like
stimulating the mind through literacy. It's very important. And I think it lends itself into like, how do you even go about finding guests? How does that even, because your podcast is 100% guest driven. Like at any given time, if Em and I don't have a guest, it's just the two of us and it's totally fine. But how do you go about, because you got to have guests to make a guest podcast work.
The first 10 episodes of the podcast were all like mostly people I had met through my Bookstagram account. And now in reflection, like it's mostly people I follow. You know, I follow folks, and if they're doing something that really interests me or I feel like they're not getting their flowers. So how do I find guests? It's mostly through, I follow them on social media. A lot of the people in New Zealand, most of them I've met through my brothers, like heavily involved in the performing arts. I would say, you know, they're like well known in the community spaces, both of them. So I've been very fortunate that through them, I have seen people active in the community spaces. So I've always remembered, like, this is someone, you know, I'd love to like chop it up with them and whatnot. So I don't go through my brothers, like, you know, just because like I know them or I've seen them from a distance. Like I still have to do the hard work, you know, like I'm not like, oh, I'm Lani's sister or I'm Nellie's sister. Like I'm putting myself out there. Therefore I have to reach out to people on my own. But I haven't met everyone that has come on the show. Like when I went home last summer for break, I met one of my guests at the New Zealand Pacific Music Awards. I was like, "Oi, Tim, do you know who I am?" I was like, Tim. Well, I said to my brother, "Hey, that's Tim Provise." He was episode 11. He was like, "Girl," I was like, "Oh, I'm so ashamed. I don't be random." And he goes, "Random." He was on the show, but I saw him. I was like, "Bro, you know?" He's like, "Rosa," and it was like, I've met people like going back, and I'm grateful. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer, but that's mostly how I meet guests is through the social media platforms and author chats. Though some of my favorite artists that I fangirl over, like I reach out to them, favorite authors. So
I mean, you know, that's the power of social media, right? There's been a couple of guests too that I'll send Rosa, and I'm like, "Hey, you should interview them." I was like, I just am a really big fan, so I would prefer if you did the interviewing and then I can listen to it.
Wait, shut up. Like Emma's kind of pointed some people out, and I've literally waited like 6 or more months to reach out because I'm like shame as to like ask. I have to research and follow them and understand who they are and, you know, how they're impacting the communities. And it's amazing. So yes, thanks, Emma. She truly has introduced me to some pretty cool folks.
You just gotta bring it over to the US sometimes. You're very New Zealand centered, but that's your space though.
I've had a lot of Tongans. I'm serious. I've had a lot of Tongan folks on my podcast, but they respond so eagerly and they're so like, and then some other folks will just give me the scene. Like I'm not pointing out any particular ethnic group. I think I've had quite a few now from the US. So it's cool. I'm trying to be, I try to be intentional with who I bring on.
So now that you're going into your 2 years, I feel like you are like the big boss in podcasting and things like that. So do you have any tips or advice for anyone who would like to start their own podcast?
Choose your niche, go for it, make sure you enjoy it, and it shouldn't be like a burden. You should actually love what you do. And finally, you don't have to be like everyone else, you know.
Now that you're in 2 years, you know, let's say that you're doing this for the next 200 years or 20 years, however long, what does a fully realized Rita Rosa look like?
Yeah, I had to actually Google fully realized. I kid you not, this morning, 6 a.m., I was like, define fully realized. I think, like I mentioned earlier, like starting this, it was really trying to prove a point. But now I'm like, I don't need to prove a point. I mean, I actually realized this probably after the first 10 episodes. Well, first of all, after Emma's episode, I realized I reflected on it and thinking about the things that she shared. And I was like, wow, this is huge. You know, thinking about the rest of the guests coming on, like there's a bigger purpose behind all of this. You know, that was the first thing I realized. As more guests came on, it just became more important to create this safe space so that they feel confident, because a lot of guests, they like ask me, oh, what can I share though? Like, why do you want me? are you sure I have something to offer? And so that's what, after I've explained, no one's ever said no, like, but people do ask that, like, really, do you think people would be interested in my story? And some of these folks are people who are, they're like artists, well-established, like musicians and things like that. So just when I started, it was all about making a point. Now I'm just like, I think 2 years on, I didn't need to make a point. It's more about just understanding just the power of stories, the power of connecting, the power of sharing perspective, looking at things through a different lens and understanding that it's okay. We agree to disagree. I think it's going in a good direction. I, always question myself at times, like, the whole imposter syndrome, like, who am I? Especially when I look at the caliber of the guests that have come on the show, like, it's humbling. So I don't know, fully realized if I'm there yet, but, we'll continue to evolve and grow. And, it's all part of the learning experience. It's all part of the journey.
So on your podcast, you always ask a question at the end. So that is what we are going to do in true Reads with Rosa fashion. What are you currently reading or would like to shout out?
It's a YA fantasy, like romance, dark fantasy romance novel. It's about a siren who every year of her birthday, she kills someone of royal blood and takes their heart. And so she comes up against a prince who is out to kill people like her or folks like her and others of her kind. So it's this whole like back and forth. And so when she loses her powers and ends up amongst the humans, like the dynamics change. Anyways, it's pretty cool. It was a random book that I found on Libby when I was doing like connections through some of my favorite authors. To Kill a Kingdom, it's really good. But I really want to shout out, I'm really excited because on April 11th or 10th, Rena Barron, she's an American author. She has a YA fantasy novel series called Kingdom of Souls. And I've read book 1 and 2. And I've been waiting patiently for book 3 to drop, and it's coming out in a few weeks. So it's called Master of Souls. It's YA fantasy, dark magic, betrayal, hints of romance, witch doctors, powerful priestesses. Yeah, honestly, my students got me into fantasy. So anyways, that's what I'm reading, and I want to shout out that series. So I've already pre-ordered and I'm waiting for it to drop into my Kindle.
This is a true fan right here. True fan. Did you have them on the podcast? You should bring that author on.
I haven't. I do have one coming up that I'm so fangirl, and after going through many agents who refused to respond to my emails, she was like, you know what, let's just do it. So we're planning that at the moment. I can't wait to drop that episode. Rena Barron, oh my gosh. She doesn't accept DMs. This is something I learned way back in 2021. I actually read a post that said that. So when I was about to send a DM, I was scouring through her post, doing my research, and I realized, oh, she's not going to respond. So I didn't. I'll have to figure out maybe, I'd love to have her on the show, but I think she's like so famous. Maybe she won't.
You never know.
You never know. Oh my gosh. Chris, did you want to shout out any books that you're reading at the moment?
I am about to start my April read, and that is going to be The House on the Cerulean Sea. It has come really highly recommended, but apparently it's very sad.
It is very sad.
But I'm very excited to read it. I've been doing okay on my 12 books in the year challenge. My March book is really slowing me down because it sucks so bad. I can't wait to drop the review on it because I don't like it. I've been reading it for months, but I finally sat down and have dedicated myself to finishing it in March because I'm not good at not finishing things. So I don't know if y'all just start books and you're like, no, this is bad. And then you put it down forever. Yeah. Or if it's just a me thing where I'm like, I must finish this dumb book.
You need to cut that out. Stop it, Chris. Don't do that. Just stop.
That's what I told him. I was like, DNF it. I was like, DNF.
Yes, put it down and review it on what you've read. Just that, seriously, I tell my students that all the time, if you don't like a book, just stop reading it.
Yeah, it really breaks my streaks I'll be reading like 2 or 3 books and then I'll find a book and I'm like, this book is garbage. And then it'll take me 8 months to finish it because it sucks.
Yeah, so then stop trying to read it. You should just put it down. And I've been telling him that. I've been telling him to do not finish it. And he has not listened. I just finished The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. It was super sad. And, obviously I knew of like the atrocities of what the Japanese had done to Korean folks and Korea as a whole. But this book really it takes place in Jeju Island, which is the southernmost part, I think, of Korea. And so I'm kind of going through that and going through from before World War II to post World War II to the early 2000s, and it goes back and forth. So I definitely just finished that one. It was very sad, and I'm about to start, I've seen it all over Book Talk, Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson.
Cool. I'm going to look them up after this.
Yeah.
I think Emma's a more consistent reader than me. I've been going through slumps, which is why I think I told Emma I'm not setting goals anymore because I just slumps is a real thing. And it's interesting because I've seen other bookstagrammers, like the Pacific bookstagrammers recently, like some of them are just coming out of slumps. Like for a long time, I thought it was just me and I was just like, oh, I'm that guy. But then I realized, but that's just for me personally. It gets a bit too much and I'll just take my time now. It's all right.
Oh, no, I'm just a goal setter. If I don't set a goal, I won't do it.
I feel that.
I just have the other problem of like, then I've done the goal and then I'm like, cool, I don't have to do this ever again.
He's very good at meeting his goal, and he's like, okay, I'm done. That's great. And I was like, wait, but you could like keep going. He's like, or I could like not.
Yeah, literally ran a 5K, haven't run since.
And that's okay. Okay, so, and also true fashion, we also like to do like a Yelp rating at the end when it's like certain things like this. So how would you, do they have Yelp in New Zealand?
Is it like when you review stuff?
Yeah.
Because like how you always review places you go to, huh?
Yeah.
Like restaurants.
Yeah.
You're that guy, huh?
I'm confused.
She is, right?
I feel
Yeah.
very hurt, first of all. I think that people should know. I think people should know what they're getting into before they go there, okay? I also think in Japan, if you're an English speaker and you're looking for other people with English reviews, it's also helpful. Anyway, don't be a hater. That my haters are my motivators.
That's how I learned about it. I was like, huh? It was from Emma. I was like, oh, this is new to me.
Okay. So we're just going to Yelp review. How would you Yelp review? 5 stars. It can only be 5 stars. And it can't be 0 either. Yelp doesn't allow you to give 0 stars. So 1 to 5 stars. How would you rate your first 2 years of having a podcast?
4.
That's solid. That's a good one. That's 80%.
Yeah, I think a 3, I'll be kind of like not acknowledging all the hard work and everything that's gone into it and everyone that's been a part of this journey. I don't want to say a 5 because my editing still sucks and I'm still working on it. I'm like, let's just say 4. Yeah.
It's a work in progress. A 4 is like solid though. There's still room for improvement, but it's not like the most terrible thing you've ever done in your life.
Yeah.
With that, it's time for our
rapid fire question.
You guys are a blast. Seriously, you're a vibe, both of you.
For anyone wondering, we will not be going back to hand-done, self-made air horns. It's going to be this sound because I spent too much time looking for it. There will be no more versions back. I refuse.
Okay, so would you rather be the hero or the superhero sidekick?
The superhero sidekick.
Christopher?
Probably the sidekick, too.
Same! I said the sidekick. The hero has too many things. Like, he's too public facing, so like, or they're too public facing. So I feel like there's so many things that can go wrong. Also, I don't mind being like the comedic relief. And then everyone gets sad when the sidekick dies,
No one's coming for my family. You know what I mean?
Like, it's like I'm putting myself in danger, but I'm not putting everyone I love in danger.
Exactly. Just gotta think smarter. That's why I'm a sidekick, because I'm thinking. Heroes, they don't think. They just like go off and do stuff. It's not me.
Things.
It's not my style.
Can't do that. Not for me. Rosa, what is your question for today?
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
My feet size. That's what I would change.
Really?
Yeah, I got some big old feet. If I could change one thing about myself,
Listen to Chris laughing.
Chris is laughing because I have bigger feet than him, but he's taller than
Really?
me. Yes, Chris got some tiny little feet. He got some dainty little feet that like can fit into all these shoes. It's like really annoying because we'll go shoe shopping together in the same section, right? And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna try these sandals." I was like, "Let me see if they got an 11." Sorry, ma'am. The biggest we go up to is 9.
Wow.
And then Chris is like, "That's me." If I could change one thing, or if not that, I would want to be taller.
Me too.
So either my feet size, like if my feet, like I'll keep my feet size if I could be like 5'9", 5'10". Yeah, or was it supposed to be something personality wise? Because I think I have a great personality, so I ain't changing.
I think it's
shit.
open to you. You know.
Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
I think I would want to be more flexible. Like I'm always just like those people that just like go into like back bridges or they just like drop into the splits. Like people that just like move their body and not like contortion move, but just flexible move. Just that mobility. I think that's the one thing that I was like, man, if I could be more flexible, that would be the move.
Yeah, I think for me, I would be probably one thing is to be a better public speaker. And Emma always says to me, "But you're on a podcast. You're fine. You just pretend you're doing your podcast." And I just like freak out. And I think it's a confidence issue as well. So it probably goes hand in hand, is just to be a bit more confident in self. Yeah, just be a better public speaker. I mean, if I could sit at a table for everything and just talk, I'd be great. But I cannot be taking my mic and sitting at a desk in front of those damn meetings. Like, people be like, who the hell she thinks she is?
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the meeting and hashtag Reads with Rosa. Please follow me on all the on all the platforms at the end of this meeting. I'm dead.
Just so interesting. I feel like we have like conflicting levels of confidence because I love public speaking, being up on a stage, like I like doing that. But then the opposite is like, great, you want to like sit me at like a small intimate gathering of people. And that's when I just like sit in the corner. I'm like, it's okay. Everyone else has ideas. I'm just here for the vibes.
Yeah, your confidence is oozing through the screen right now. I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to get on Chris's level. Well, Emma, you know, she's always been a vibe. But I was just like, oh my God, teach me.
At this point, we've been doing the podcast so long, it just feels normal. So it's totally fine.
Feels like a normal conversation. That's true. Christopher, what is your question?
What is the thing standing between you and accomplishing your biggest dream?
What is with these deep questions today?
It's okay. I have my answer.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Money.
For real. Actual.
I was going to say.
Because my biggest dream is not some like grand metaphorical, like, oh, I would change the world. Nah, I just want my little house.
Yeah.
My self-sustaining house.
Exactly.
I just want to be comfortable. I just want to like wake up and like do what I want to do. Honestly, that's it. Like, that's my dream. Honestly, that's all I need. So I just need the money to make that happen. That's it.
Daddy.
that, yes, I'm on that buzz right there. For real.
Which is so funny because I remember like younger me was definitely like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to be running everything and doing all these things. And I'm like, at this point, just give me my little house somewhere. It don't even got to be in a city. It could be out in the country. In fact, ideally, it'd be out in the country somewhere, out in some rural area. It's just me, myself, and nature.
Hey,
just
stop stealing my ideas there. Cut it out. Yeah, I love that. Like, because I'm the same. I think Emma knows I'm not really a city life kind of person. Every opportunity I get, I'm like countryside. I love exploring that. So I would prefer, money, man. Like money so that I could just do what I want and not have to work and just go to places, you know, travel and do that stuff, you know, so that I can just relax and read for a living. Build a library in my house. That's my dream, is like a house with just a library in it. With those, those, I think I've said this before because I watch too much American stuff, but in those like old like libraries with, you know, the desks with the green lights, you know, like old tradition. I didn't know what it's called, but yeah, like that. And in the movies, you're like, they're in those massive libraries. I dream of that, like a library, owning a home, my library in there.
With the ladder that goes across all your books.
That kind of stuff, I know. But yeah, money is just to be able to, like, not just do me, but look after the people that I love without all these other things. Well, should I answer differently? Should I give another answer?
No. I was going to say the same thing. After Chris was like, oh, I already know. I was like, oh, shoot, I know too. It's definitely money, time, and sleep. That's the 3 things stopping me. If I had all 3 of those things in surplus, excess.
There we go. So, Rosa, where can people find your podcast?
Reads with Rosa podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. The video, that's all for audio. The video episodes are on YouTube, social media platforms at Reads with Rosa on everything. So I'm mostly YouTube, video, podcast platforms, and then Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Reads with Rosa for book stuff, education, music, creative stuff, podcast.
All the things.
All the things that I love.
It's all there.
Thanks so much for coming on our show today, Rosa. We hope you had a fun time spilling the tea, kind of.
Thank you to both of you, Chris and Emma. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for thinking about me. I love the vibe that you two have. Keep going with your podcast. Keep thriving.
Woohoo! Emma, where can people find the podcast?
You can find our podcast on Instagram and Twitter at The Tea with Crema. If you'd like to drop us a cup of tea, you can also Venmo us at The Tea with Crema. You can stream us on YouTube and anywhere that you like to stream your podcasts. We hope to see you next time. Bye!